John Amman, I'm the Executive Director of the Westside Future Fund. Thanks for being with us this morning. We're grateful that you're here. I always like to check, please raise your hand if you're a first-timer. First time at a Transform Summit. Awesome. Thank you for being here. To tell you a little bit about our program, we begin every program with a devotional. And the devotionals are centered around learning out of Nehemiah, story in the Bible, about how Nehemiah rebuilt Jerusalem. So we take our inspiration for our devotional speaker to take lessons out of Nehemiah. And then when our devotional speaker is done, we like to have everyone self-introduced to encourage connectivity around our common cause. And then we'll have a program speaker. And we're great that our program speaker today is Leonard Adams, who is the founder and CEO of a great organization called Quest Communities. And we'll be done by 9 o'clock. And this is actually our fourth Transform West Summit of 2018. We've been doing these now a little over 2 years. And we're very lucky, and I'm not just saying this because he's on the board of the Westside Future Fund, but because he's a terrific speaker, he's got a great heart and a great soul. But Rodney Bullard is our devotional speaker this morning. Rodney is currently Vice President of Community Affairs at Chick-fil-A and Executive Director of the Chick-fil-A Foundation. And we're lucky that Rodney is here because he's usually on a plane going somewhere, because he does work all around the country on behalf of Chick-fil-A. And if you go check how many stores Chick-fil-A has around the country, you can understand Rodney is so busy. But their philanthropy is all focused around fostering youth and education. And his full bio is on the back of your program, but he's been a United States Assistant Attorney General, where he was presented with an award for his outstanding work. He's been in the White House as a fellow, and he has also served our country, served us in the United States Air Force. And what I'm always a big fan of is that anyone that can have the patience to write a book, because I can't stay still. So Rodney has a book coming out, and the title of the book called Heroes Wanted, Why the World Needs You to Live Your Heart Out. And he shares the surprisingly simple but incredibly powerful ways you can impact others and create a legacy of service. So I think the book's coming out next week, Tuesday. And what's really cool is you can go do your own and understand what kind of hero you are, because I think it was Joseph Campbell that said a hero is one that gives themselves to something larger than yourself. So there's a lot of definitions of hero once you move beyond serving self. And you can go online and answer about 20 questions and through Rodney's webpage, and it'll tell you what kind of hero you are. So that's kind of cool to go check that out. So we're lucky to have Rodney with here this morning to deliver our message, and as always, we remain grateful for the leadership and support of Rodney on the West Side, and of course Chick-fil-A as well. So please give him a welcome, and we'll get going. Buddy?
As always, appreciate you, bro.
I'll give you a mic.
I figured as much. My wife says I have a big voice. Good morning. Good morning. Good. Thank you all for being here. It is truly a pleasure to come to these meetings. These meetings are important for our community. These meetings are important for us as individuals, and I always feed my soul when I come here. So thank you all very much. I am on cloud 9 this morning. I'm on cloud 9 because last night I went to go see Black Panther. There you go. Raise your hand if you've seen Black Panther. I will not spoil it for you this morning, I promise you, but we will talk about things. So raise your hand if you've seen the movie. There you go. It is an amazing movie. It's an amazing movie because not only can black folks and black children see themselves as superheroes and see themselves in a powerful way, a way that when I was growing up, those images were not readily available. And so that's important, and I think it's important as we continue to do work in this community that we're aware of that. And so Black Panther was important to me, and I was on cloud 9 coming out, and I'm still on cloud 9 right now. But I think about heroes. I think about heroes, and as I came out of that movie, I thought about my time in Washington, D.C. And I hearkened back to 2005, actually, October of 2005. And I had just gotten to Washington, D.C. at that time. My wife and I had moved there from California. We were in the United States Air Force, and we had just been selected as White House Fellows. And we were, again, on cloud nine. The White House Fellowship was a program that Colin Powell had gone through, Sanjay Gupta had gone through, Tom Johnson, and we somehow had slipped through the cracks and gotten into this program. And so I was excited, but I was also starting to feel the weight of the city, all the things that were going on. And I looked in the paper, and Rosa Parks had passed away. And they were actually allowing Rosa Parks and placing her in the rotunda of the Capitol. And she was lying in state, which meant we could actually go see Rosa Parks lie there in the rotunda of the Capitol. It's an honor that has been reserved for only a few. Rosa Parks is the only black woman to have received that honor. In fact, I believe she's the only woman, period, to have received that honor, usually for presidents. Dr. King received that honor, but very, very few have this privilege of lying in state in the rotunda of the Capitol. And so I said, baby, I want to go see Rosa Parks. It's important. Rosa Parks is important. And so I came out with a few thousand of my friends, and we marched towards Rosa Parks. And we talked about Rosa Parks. And I'll never forget, someone told me, you know, Rosa Parks was a hero. You know, we have Black Panther, and that's great, but Rosa Parks was a hero. And as we got a little bit further, someone else told me, hey, do you know the story of Rosa Parks? And I said, yes, and they said, no, do you know the story of Rosa Parks? And they said on December 1st, 1955, in Montgomery, Alabama, Rosa Parks was a seamstress. She didn't have a high school education. She had dropped out early so that she could work. But she was not a dumb person in any form or fashion. She worked hard. And on this day, December 1st, 1955, she was coming back from the department store where she worked as a seamstress, and it was a cold day, unusually cold in Montgomery. It was raining, in fact, so it was a dreary day. And in the evening, she was catching her bus back home. And she gets on the bus on this cold, dreary day, and she sits in the first seat that's allowed for blacks or coloreds at the time. And that was the fifth row back. The first four rows were reserved for whites. But it was a movable placard, and she knew that at some point, because it was a cold, dreary day, that bus was going to be unusually full, and that more white people were going to take the bus today than usual. So she knew that at some point, that placard was going to be moved, and she was going to be moved to the back of the bus. She gets in, other blacks sit next to her, and she's sitting next to the window, actually, and there's a gentleman sitting next to her. And finally, the bus continues to fill up, and she sees that, in fact, white people are starting to stand. And so, at some point, the bus comes to a screeching halt. And James Blake, who was the bus driver at the time, he gets up. He gets up from his seat, and he says, y'all got to go. And everybody else got up. But Rosa Parks did not. Rosa Parks sat in that seat. And he said, what are you doing? And she said, I'm not moving today. He said, you know, we'll take you to jail. She says, I know, but I'm not moving today. And in fact, they took Rosa Parks to jail. And Rosa Parks, her defiance, it led to the civil rights movement that led to Dr. King's leadership, that led to all the things that we enjoy and the diversity that we see in this room today. Rosa Parks, when I looked at her, when I finally got up to the rotunda after hearing her story, was a diminutive woman. She was a little bit less than 5'1". She was small. She was small. Rosa Parks would later recount, people see me as this old woman. She was 92 when she died. They see the pictures of me and they think of me as an elderly woman. They think that I was tired and that was the reason why I didn't get up. She said, but I wasn't old. I was only 42 years old at the time. She said, but I was tired. I was tired of giving in. I was tired of the wrong thing. I was tired of seeing injustice and just letting it go. So when I think about heroes, when I think about Black Panther, when I think about Rosa Parks, I think about heroes have to have a call. And we are in the book of Nehemiah. And it's interested me to read the book of Nehemiah. Because I look at Nehemiah and it's very clear that in the first chapter, the 4th verse says, Nehemiah, then I prayed to the God of heaven, and I answered the king. See, Nehemiah was the cupbearer for the king. And he said, I answered the king, if it pleases the king, and if your servant has found favor in his sight, let him send me to the city in Judah where my ancestors are buried so that I can rebuild it. Nehemiah had a calling that he was answering. He had a calling based off of a conviction. His conviction was his relatives had gone back to Judah. They had gone back and they had seen the remnant, those who were left behind. They had seen the brokenness of the wall. They had seen the brokenness of the people. And he was convicted because every calling starts with a conviction. He was convicted by what he saw. And at some point he was tired. At some point he could no longer give in to what he saw, and he had to do something about it. And so as Nehemiah then goes, he said, send me. Send me, I'll go. I'll answer the call. Nehemiah answers the call and he goes back to Judah. And when he got there, made me realize that there are 2 other things that always happen in the life of a hero. Someone always tries to take the hero's superpower. Always. So who likes Superman? Superman was my favorite character growing up. Loved Superman. But there was always some kryptonite out there for Superman. That green stuff that just took away his power, zapped his energy. There's always some kryptonite out there. Sometimes it comes in the form of people. In the case of Nehemiah, it's very clear that he had 3 who told him, Sanballat, the Horonite, Tobiah, the Ammonite, and Geshem, the Arab, who laughed at us and despised us. And I'm going to tell you, I promise you that as you answer your call, as we gather, as we try and do something for the Westside, there will be obstacles in our way. Whether it is your personal calling you are answering, whether it is an organizational calling, there are going to be people saying, why are they doing that? That doesn't make any sense. That will never work. I don't understand that. In my own personal life, I told you I was a White House Fellow. And I never forget when I applied for the White House Fellowship. I went and excitedly told my boss. And I said, ma'am, I'm applying for this White House Fellowship. This is a big deal. And she looked at me and she said, that's for superstars. And I was taken aback. And then I said, well, ma'am, that's why I'm applying. Because at some point you have to take back your superpower. Your confidence in yourself, your belief in something unseen, your faith is a superpower. Our ability to work together is a superpower. Don't let anybody get in between that. Don't let anybody stop that. And lastly, every superhero has to know their secret weapon. So going back to Superman, Superman had those laser eyes. Secret weapon. People didn't know that. He put the laser eyes on you and it was all over. I love our superpower. I love our superpower because at the end of the day, our superpower is the thing that's going to get us through. If you let me, I'd like to show you a video of a friend of mine. John said that I wrote a book, and I wrote a book called Heroes Wanted. And frankly, I didn't know I was going to go see Black Panther last night, and I wasn't exactly sure what I was going to speak about today. But I did know this book is called Heroes Wanted. And a friend of mine by the name of Jason Wilson is up in Detroit. He is a martial artist, martial art expert. He teaches young men, mostly African-American boys, in the inner city of Detroit. And I'm not sure if you all have been to Detroit, but Detroit makes the Westside look like Shangri-La. It does, unfortunately. 90% of the homes in Detroit are burned out. Not vacant, burned out. There are over 90,000 burned out homes in Detroit. They call it a cancer because when one home burns out, then somebody next door, their value goes down and they move. And then when they move, their home burns out and the cancer just continues to go down the block. We've seen some elements of that cancer here. But Jason gets a chance to work with these young men on a daily basis. And I want to show you a video from Jason because I think it's illustrative of our superpower. Well, we're not going to let them take our superpower. We're just going to talk about it. So we'll keep this up really as a visual. You see this young man here, and this is my friend Jason right there. Now, I did not know Jason prior to this video coming out. And what happened was this young man is being asked to break this board. And he hits the board, and the board doesn't break. And then the young man begins to cry. And the young man begins to cry in a martial art class in Detroit, in the inner city, with all boys. And not only does he begin to cry, but now he's humiliated. And Jason comes over to him and he says, it's okay to cry. There's nothing wrong with crying. He says, sometimes you have to cry. He says, but you can do this. He says, I want to let you know that I love you. That above all things, I love you. This video went viral, over 70 million views. Ellen DeGeneres called Jason. Steve Harvey called Jason. Good Morning America called Jason. My wife saw it on TV and said, you need to get to know Jason. And frankly, I thought nothing of it until about 2 or 3 months later, as I was writing my book, my publisher said, you need to get to know this guy by the name of Jason Wilson. And Jason was so powerful. His lesson was so powerful that I included in the book. And Jason says, countless men have experienced a time in their lives when instead of connection, they receive condemnation. So it's spiritually imperative that this young boy did not experience that in this moment. I got on one knee to let him know I was now connected to how he was feeling and calmly helped him work through his emotions. As a result, he gathered himself and broke the board with the very next punch. Today, this video has over 70 million views and counting. Not just because people need to feel connected, but they need to feel connected to love. It's written that love covers a multitude of sins. And I can testify that a connection rooted in love always wins. Dr. King said, everybody can be great because everybody can serve. You don't have to have a college degree to serve. You don't have to make your subject and verb agree to serve. You only need a heart full of grace and a soul generated by love. At the end of the day, our superpower, our secret weapon, is the love that we have for one another, the love that we have for ourselves, and the love that we have for our community. Love got you up this morning. And if it didn't, I hope that the next Friday it is love that gets you up. Because it can't be just about networking in this room. It can't be just about, I want to see somebody or be seen. Because the work of this room, the work of this day, is to love on a community that hasn't felt the love that it should have for the past 60 years. The love on this room is for us to come together in an interconnected fashion, realizing that we are all interrelated, and I can't be who I'm supposed to be unless you are who you're supposed to be. At the end of the day, we talk about the beloved community, a community of equality, a community of justice, a community that won't allow, as Rosa Parks said, injustice to lie. Today we sit as superheroes, just like Rosa Parks. But tomorrow we stand as superheroes. There's work to be done. I am blessed to do it with you. Thank you.